According to energy professionals, power outages cost about 18 billion to 33 billion each year in the United States. Howdy, my name is Alfonso Jimenez. I'm an electrical engineering major at Texas A&M University. So nowadays everybody uses electricity, and we get that electricity from the power grid. Now the power grid it has been around for a long time. It's an old system. And now that the world has evolved and people have started using electricity more and more each day, the power grid has become a problem. In today's presentation, we're going to talk about 3 solutions to the power grid. The first one being replacing old equipment in vulnerable areas. The next one is using microgrids. And the last one being using smart grids, which is the best solution. So first, I'm going to talk about replacing old equipment in vulnerable areas. According to Maria Temming, they are planning on doing this by using a computer algorithm. This computer algorithm can pinpoint vulnerable areas across the US. These vulnerable areas are areas where wildfires may occur, or like hurricanes or stuff like that. So once the computer pinpoints it, then they will try to figure out a solution to that vulnerability. For example, let's say the computer pinpoints a vulnerable area that's vulnerable to wildfire. So then once it's pinpointed, they will think of a solution that might be burying the transmission lines underground, which then reduces the possibilities of there being a power outage. Now, the problem with this solution is that the computer algorithm can't pinpoint every single vulnerable place in the US. It's impossible for it to do so. So there will still be vulnerable areas which can cause power outages. Also, even though natural disasters are the leading causes to power outages, there are still other things that can cause power outages. Something as small as a tree branch messing with the transmission lines. Next, I'm going to talk about how we could use microgrids. So, according to Aloysius Parandi, a microgrid is a small power supply system that consists of loads and distributed energy source. So an example of a microgrid is a house with solar panels. Now, these solar panels get energy and electricity, and they store that electricity. And according to Steven Fessler, whenever there's a power outage in the power grid, that house can then use that stored energy to power itself up. Many places like hospitals and universities are already using microgrids. Now, the problem with this solution is that you could see it as a temporary solution to the big problem. The big problem is that the power grid will still have power outages, and they are only temporarily solving it by having electricity in those homes, so they cannot be affected. So the main problem is still there. Next, we're going to talk about how we could use smart grids. Now, according to the U.S. Department of Energy, a smart grid is a system that has two-way communication with the utility and the customer. It can transmit information and electricity. Now, how does this work? So nowadays they are selling smart appliances. The smart appliances, then whenever they are being used, it collects data like how long they are being used or at what time. That combined with smart house meters, which collect the same thing, collect the same data, then transmit that data to the utility. The utility then can figure out when to send the most electricity or when to reduce its electricity provided to that home. Other pluses for the smart grid is that it could implement smart grids. It could implement microgrids. So instead of just collecting the smart microgrid, instead of just collecting that data, that energy, it could actually send it back to the utility. So if the utility is low in electricity, they could just use that energy being provided by the house's solar panels. Another big plus is, you might be asking yourself, like, what if there's a power outage? So according to Jordan Feller, if there's a power outage, the smart grid is actually aware of that. It can be aware of that instantly. So once it's aware, it'll try to find a new way to transmit electricity to those being affected by the power outage. In conclusion, the power grid is an old system, and it's going to run into some problems. And with the solutions that are here, like replacing old equipment and using microgrids or using smart grids, we have to invest in the power grid. We are already losing a lot of money when there's blackouts, so why not invest that money first? And in my opinion, the best solution out there is a smart grid. Thank you. Any questions? Alright, thanks. Alright, so here's my note card. Thank you.